Hello everyone. Before we begin, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me, where are you listening from? And what time is it for you? Now, let me tell you a story. I used to think moving to the cabin would be peaceful, the kind of quiet where the loudest sound is the wind through the trees or the crackle of a fire. Grace loved it out here. Said the woods felt alive, like they were watching over us. I used to laugh that off. But after what happened, I don't laugh anymore. The ridge behind the cabin towered like a wall. Tall, thin pines cut into the sky. Beautiful by day, but by night, it was different. Still heavy, like the world forgot how to breathe. I figured the unease was just my imagination, until that night on the porch. We were wrapped in a blanket under the stars. Grace was humming some old song from her childhood when she suddenly stopped mid-note. "Do you see that?" she whispered. I followed her gaze toward the ridge. At first, nothing. Then it moved something pale, slinking low to the ground, almost white in the starlight. Not a deer, too thin, limbs too long. Its motion was broken, like it didn't know how to walk. It paused, looked toward us. I couldn't see its face, but I knew it saw me. "It's just an animal," I said, trying to calm myself as much as Grace. "No," she murmured, "it's not." There was something in her voice, calm, reverent almost, that chilled me more than the thing itself. That night I barely slept. Every creak in the walls made me jump. Grace, meanwhile, seemed perfectly at ease. In the morning, I walked the property. At the edge of the clearing, I found it. A nest of broken branches, flattened, like something had been laying there. In the center, a spiral of bones, small, picked clean. Rabbits, maybe, but arranged intentionally. Grace just looked at it and said, "It's a gift." "From what?" "The forest," she said. That night it came closer. We were by the fire when Grace stood up and went to the window. "It's here," she said. I grabbed the flashlight and stepped onto the porch. Cold air punched into my lungs. There, at the edge of the clearing, it stood upright now, gaunt and pale with limbs too long, hands dangling past its knees. Still, watching, the light hit it and it flinched, snapping its head away like the beam burned. Then it dropped to all fours and skittered into the trees. When I turned back, Grace was still at the window, smiling. "It doesn't want to hurt us," she whispered. "It just wants to watch." That was the first time I felt truly afraid, not of the thing, but of her. She started spending more time outside, even barefoot in the cold, just watching, waiting. She said she saw it every day. She called it the Watcher. "It comes closer every time," she said. One night I woke to find her side of the bed empty. I found the porch door wide open. Snow tracked out into the trees. I followed them with a flashlight, heart pounding. Grace stood at the tree line, staring into the woods. "Grace," I called. "What are you doing?" She didn't turn. Her breath was calm, visible in the cold. "Do you hear it?" she asked. "Hear what?" "It's singing." I dragged her back inside. The next day she acted like nothing happened. Later I found a bundle of sticks tied with twine near the clearing. Human hair was woven into it. Her hair. Grace held it like it was sacred. "It's a gift," she said. I burned it. 3 nights later, I heard something on the roof. Footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Grace was gone again. the window open. She stood in the clearing, arms raised toward the ridge. And the thing, it was there, looming over her, its body contorted, its face a gaping black void. I ran, shotgun in hand. Fired once. It staggered. Fired again. It convulsed. I pulled Grace away as it let out a sound like metal scraping metal, then skittered back into the dark. Back inside, I barricaded the door. Grace didn't fight me. She whispered. It was beautiful. She stopped eating, barely spoke, stared out the window for hours, said we couldn't leave, said it wouldn't let us. I started hearing whispers, scratching at the windows. One night, Grace woke me. It's here. Scraping circled the cabin, then silence, then the door creaked open. The thing crawled inside, contorting to fit. It stood tall, eyeless, its face a void. It looked at me, and I felt it in my mind, in my thoughts. Grace screamed. I fired. It shrieked, a high, splitting sound, and recoiled. I grabbed Grace and ran out into the storm, into the trees. It chased us. I could feel it. She fell. I picked her up, got to the truck. We barely escaped. We didn't stop until the lights of town appeared. Grace whispered, "We can't go back." I nodded. We wouldn't. We packed what we could and left that place behind. But something still clings to us. Some nights I wake to the sound of Grace whispering in her sleep. Other nights I find her at the window, and I swear she's smiling, like she's waiting, like it never really left, like we brought it with us. I came up to the cabin to get away from everything. City noise, work stress, the divorce. My grandfather passed away 2 months ago, left the place to me in his will. I hadn't been up here since I was a kid. The property sits deep in the Cascades, an old hunting cabin miles from anything that even resembles civilization. No service, no neighbors, no distractions. It sounded like exactly what I needed. The first couple days were fine, quiet, peaceful. I split wood, made coffee over the gas stove, sat out on the deck and watched the trees sway like green ocean waves. There's a stillness to the forest up here, a kind of reverence you only feel when everything else is stripped away. But the peace didn't last. The first thing I noticed was the door to the storm cellar. It was chained shut. Now I remembered that cellar from childhood. My grandfather used to keep old tools and supplies down there, mason jars, traps, bags of lime and flour. He never had it locked before, but now it was bolted and chained with a rusted padlock. And the lock itself looked new, too new. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe he'd locked it before winter and forgotten about it. But then I found his journal. It was tucked in the drawer by his cot. Just a plain leather-bound notebook filled with tidy, almost obsessive handwriting. Most of it was just notes about weather, game activity, supply lists. But near the end, the entries got strange. Heard it again last night, underneath the floorboards. It doesn't come out when the lanterns are lit. Marked the trees again. It keeps wiping them away. I think it's getting bolder. 3 dead birds on the stoop this morning, arranged in a circle. They don't bleed when I touch them. I didn't know what to make of it. My grandfather was a sharp man, not prone to paranoia. But those last entries were dated just a week before he died. That night I couldn't sleep. Something about reading those words stirred up memories I didn't know I still had. Shadows moving outside the window. The way Grandpa used to whisper to himself when he thought I was asleep. I left the lantern on when I went to bed. Around 3 a.m. I heard something, not outside, not on the roof, below, a low, dragging noise, like someone shifting across dirt with their hands. I sat up in the cot, heart hammering. The noise stopped. I waited, then came a thud. From underneath the cabin floor, I grabbed the flashlight, crept to the living room, and stood above the trapdoor to the cellar. The chains were still tight. The lock still there, but something had scraped along the inside of the wood, as if fingernails or claws had dragged across it. I stayed awake until dawn. The light felt like salvation. The next morning, I walked the perimeter of the property. The air was cold and still, the way it gets before snow. That's when I noticed something odd on the tree trunks, thin symbols carved into the bark in a precise pattern. They looked recent, fresh, not random graffiti either. These were deliberate, runic. I snapped pictures with my camera and returned to the cabin, flipping through my grandfather's journal again. Near the end, I found drawings, sketches of the same marks. Wards, he'd written, keep it from getting too close. That night, I lit every lantern I could find, still didn't sleep. Around 2:47 a.m., the wind died completely. The trees stood frozen. No bugs, no rustling, just the sound of my own breathing. Then the thumping began again, but this time it was heavier, pacing. Whatever was beneath the cabin wasn't just crawling anymore. It was walking. I pressed my ear to the floorboards. My breath fogged on the hardwood, and then, clear as day, I heard it breathe. Something was alive down there. I spent the next day trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was an animal, a raccoon den under the cabin. A bear even, though that made no sense with how tight the crawl space was. I nearly packed up to leave, but something about the journal kept me there. I felt like I owed it to my grandfather to see it through. That night I made a mistake. I opened the trapdoor. I waited until just before sunset. I unlocked the chain, lifted the creaking wood panel, and shone my flashlight down into the cellar dirt floor. Old shelves, jars, nothing out of place. But the air that wafted up was wrong. It smelled like rot and copper, like something old and wet and dying. I closed it again, locked it, sat up all night. At 3:13 a.m., I woke to the sound of the padlock snapping off. I leapt from the cot, flashlight in hand, and rushed to the trapdoor. The chain lay coiled on the ground like a dead snake. The door hung open by 2 inches. Something had come up. I backed away slowly, grabbed the hunting rifle from above the mantel, and trained it on the trapdoor. Nothing moved, until the light flickered. The lantern on the far wall dimmed, then flared. As if something was blocking it, I held my breath. Then I saw it, a hand, long, pale, segmented like a spider's leg, reaching up and curling around the edge of the trapdoor. I didn't wait. I fired. The blast lit the room like lightning. The thing vanished down into the dark with an awful shriek, a sound like rusted metal screaming underwater. I slammed the door shut, threw the couch over it, and didn't sleep until sunrise. The next morning I drove into town, found a priest, paid him $200 in cash to bless the land. I don't even know if he believed me. I just needed to do something. When I came back, I found something hanging from the trees. 3 bundles of feathers and twine, arranged in a triangle. Beneath them, a ring of stones, and in the center, one of the jars from the cellar filled with black water. There were symbols drawn in the dirt all around it, the same ones I'd seen carved in the trees. But this time, they were wrong, twisted, inverted, like someone or something had mocked them. That night I boarded up the trapdoor, bolted it, nailed it. I even lit a fire inside the hearth and left the lanterns burning bright. But nothing came, not that night, not the next. On the 3rd night, just as I started to believe it was over, I heard the scratching, but not from below ... from the attic. I left the next morning. Haven't been back since. Sometimes when I'm driving late through the woods, I swear I see the symbols on tree trunks just off the shoulder. Sometimes I hear the dragging sounds in my dreams, and sometimes I wake up to find black feathers on my window ledge. The first time we heard the scratching, we thought it was the wind. That's the thing about the desert. Every sound out there feels like it means something, like it's whispering secrets through the cracks in the adobe walls. It was Lena who said it first. Her voice was coming in short, panicked gasps. "It's in the house," she whispered. "It's in here with us." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My eyes were glued to the base of the door, to the thin strip of light and the shadow that shifted beneath it, twisting like smoke, unnatural and wrong. Then came the growl. Deep, guttural, purposeful. It wasn't just a noise, it was a message. It knew where we were. And then the scratching started. Slow, deliberate. Long nails dragged across wood, pausing now and then, like it was listening for our fear. Lena screamed, "Stop it!" She covered her ears and collapsed against the wall. But the growl stopped, and that's when it got worse. A voice, soft at first, barely a whisper, but it was human, too human. Lena. It hissed her name like it was savoring every syllable. Lena froze. Her face went pale. How does it know my name? I didn't have an answer. We stayed in that room for what felt like hours. It paced, scratched, sometimes tapped on the windows with those same clawed fingers. Click, 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 like it was toying with us. I stood guard with a fireplace poker. Lena curled in the corner, clutching a blanket to her chest. I'd never felt so useless. Then came the sound of tires crunching gravel. Headlights washed through the window. Lena bolted upright. "It's the elder." I yanked the curtain aside. There he stood, tall and broad in the headlights, holding a bundle of smoking sage. Then it moved. The shadow peeled itself from the base of the fence, its shape low and hunched, all twisted limbs and wrong angles. It crawled toward him, slow but hungry. The elder didn't flinch. He raised Sage high and began chanting. The thing screeched, a high-pitched, inhuman shriek that made my bones rattle. "It doesn't like the sage," Lena said, her voice trembling. The creature lunged. The elder stood his ground and tossed a handful of something ash, maybe, into the air. It hit the thing like acid. It reeled back, screeching, body spasming, its form flickering like it couldn't decide what shape to take. For a moment it looked human, a woman, then a child, then a hollow-eyed thing with skin stretched too tight. "Stay here," the elder barked. He came into the house, moving like a force of nature. His eyes burned with fire. He set the sage on a dish, lit cedar, and let the smoke pour upward, filling the room with its thick, bitter scent. "It's a skinwalker," he said. "Someone sent it. It won't leave until we force it out." "Force it out how?" I asked. He didn't answer, just kept chanting and scattering ash and herbs in every corner. Finally, he looked at us. "You'll have to be strong," he said. "It feeds on fear. Don't give it what it wants." Right on cue, the door slammed. The house trembled. Shadows danced. The elder's chanting grew louder, more urgent. The air buzzed with energy, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Then everything went still. He lowered his arms. Sweat shimmered on his forehead. "It's gone," he said, but his voice didn't sound convinced. For now, the next morning we walked the property. That's when we found it, buried near the fence. A bundle wrapped in cloth, tied with human hair. Inside, bones, small ones, clean, arranged carefully, and a single piece of jewelry. "This is the curse," the elder said. "You were the target." He handed Leni a pouch of herbs. "Keep this with you, and stay away from whoever gave you that." Lena stared at the bundle. Her face went pale. "I think I know who it was," she whispered. "I didn't ask. I didn't want to know." We left later that day. I kept checking the mirror as we drove. The fence line was empty, but I couldn't shake the feeling it wasn't over. I was 3 weeks into my fire watch rotation when the cold started creeping in earlier than usual. They warned us about that when I took the station, how the winds in northern Idaho didn't always follow the seasons, how they could change overnight, and how sometimes that change carried more than just a chill. It was mid-September, but the forest below my tower looked like late November. The evergreens were coated in frost each morning, and the river that carved through the canyon had a glassy stillness, like it was waiting for something. Still, I liked the solitude. I wasn't running from anything dramatic. I just needed space. No phone, no traffic, no conversations that spiraled into obligation. Up there, it was just me, a battered logbook, the radio, and the rustle of pine needles that whispered with every shift in the wind. Then came the knock. It was just after 2:00 a.m., the wind howling like it had a purpose, and the windows of the tower fogging from the inside. I was scribbling an entry into the log, something about a lightning strike west of Tuttle Ridge when I heard it. A soft, singular knock, like someone had tapped once politely on the door of the watchtower 60 feet below. At first, I thought I imagined it. Nobody hikes up here. Not this late. Not without lights. But then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. Measured, calm. I froze, pen still in hand. Who's there? I called, leaning toward the trapdoor that led to the stairwell. No answer. I grabbed the radio and keyed it up. Base, this is Tower 4. Got a possible trespasser at the base of my tower. Anyone report a missing hiker? Static. Then the voice of dispatch, sleepy and crackling. Negative, Tower 4. Nobody in your sector today. Weather's keeping most off the trails. You sure? I hesitated. Heard knocking, that's all. Could be a branch that wind's picking up. Log it and keep an eye out. I logged it. I watched for 2 hours, and I saw nothing until the next night. It started with the cold, bitter, penetrating, worse than before. I could see my breath inside the cabin, the kind of cold that makes your bones ache. I stuffed a towel against the gap under the door, pulled on my extra thermal layers, and lit the small emergency heater we were allowed to use sparingly. Then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. But this time it wasn't at the base of the tower. It was at the trapdoor, directly beneath my feet. I stood up so fast I knocked the radio off the desk. The trapdoor had a latch, a heavy one. I stared at it like I expected it to rattle loose. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. But then something began to climb. Slow, creaking footsteps on the metal stairs that spiraled around the tower, 1 foot at a time, like it didn't need to rush. I backed into the corner, flashlight raised, eyes locked on the hatch. The latch held. The footsteps stopped. Then I heard my voice coming from the other side of the door. Let me in. Exactly my voice, my tone. But the rhythm was off, like someone trying to copy the cadence of a language they didn't speak. I didn't answer. I just sat there, frozen. Eventually it went quiet. After a while, I slept. I don't remember deciding to. I just woke up with the dawn. I should have left that morning. I didn't. By the third night, the cold wasn't just outside. It was in my chest, like breathing in ice. The forest was silent. Not even wind. I called base again. You sure there's no one else out here? Tower 4, you're alone out there, dispatch said. What's going on? I don't think I'm alone. I stayed up again that night, this time with a thermos of coffee and the hatchet from the emergency locker next to me. It didn't knock. It climbed. I heard it scaling the beams of the tower like a spider. Metal creaked, but no footsteps. Just the sound of something moving too fast and too quietly. Then it was on the roof. I heard its weight shift directly above my head, and then scrape. It dragged something along the metal roof. Not claws' fingers. I could hear the bones clicking against the steel. I backed away slowly, not taking my eyes off the ceiling. It leaned over the edge of the tower and peered into the window. And it was me. My face, my eyes, but wrong, sunken, like it had been dug up and left to dry in the sun. Its mouth opened too wide, too slowly. Let me in, it said again. Only this time the voice cracked. My voice broke. It couldn't hold the form anymore. Its mouth trembled and widened, and from it came a noise I will never forget, a layered, broken sound, like a woman sobbing, a dog whining and metal scraping all at once. Then it disappeared over the side. I stayed locked inside the rest of the night. When daylight came, I climbed down. Not for long, just enough to check the perimeter. I needed to see if there were tracks, anything. And I found them. Not human, not animal. A set of prints, long and narrow, with too many toes, deep, frozen into the earth as if whatever made them was colder than the forest itself. I radioed base and told them I had symptoms of exposure, possibly hypothermia. That was enough to get a chopper out. I haven't gone back, but some nights, even here in the city, I'll hear a soft knock on the window. 3 times, and I won't look because I know what I'll see. And I know what it'll ask. Let me in. You ever feel like something followed you home from somewhere? Not a person, not an animal, something else. Something you couldn't explain if your life depended on it? That's how it started for me. It was supposed to be a 3-day camping trip. Just me and my brother, Liam. He'd found this place called Bitter Ridge, out near the base of the Uintas in Utah. He read about it in some hikers' forum. Said it had old mining trails, abandoned cabins, even a collapsed watchtower up on a bluff. Perfect kind of place if you wanted a quiet escape. And it was, at first, we set up camp not far from the base of the ridge. The pines were thick, the nights cool, and the only sounds were wind and distant bird calls. We spent the first 2 days exploring the ruins of a collapsed mine shaft and collecting firewood. It felt untouched, like the land had been waiting a long time for company. But then came the 3rd night. It started with a noise, small, almost delicate. We were sitting by the fire, Liam sipping from his dented flask, and I heard it from behind the tent. A twig snapping. I looked at him. Did you hear that? He paused, the flask halfway to his lips. Probably a deer, maybe elk, but it didn't sound like a deer. It was slower, like something testing its steps. We both went quiet, listening. Then came the breathing, shallow, raspy, almost wet. We stood up at the same time. I grabbed the flashlight, swung it toward the trees behind the tent. Nothing, just pines and shadow. Then Liam said, "There's someone out there." Not something. Someone. I turned to him, my skin crawling. "You sure?" He nodded, slow. I saw them, just for a second. Looked like a man, tall, just standing between the trees, watching. We decided not to sleep that night. The fire was kept alive. The guns were kept close. I must have dozed off around 4 a.m., because the next thing I remember is Liam shaking me hard, whispering, "Wake up. Look, look." I followed his gaze toward the tree line. There was something standing just beyond the reach of the firelight. It was shaped like a man, tall, lanky, but its limbs didn't hang right. One arm was too long. The other looked bent, like it had been broken at the elbow and never set right. Its skin, or what I could see of it, was grayish, stretched thin across bone. But the worst part, it was wearing Liam's face. Same sharp jaw, same hollow eyes, same sun-bleached hair. It was like staring into a twisted mirror. I turned to my brother, still sitting beside me, eyes wide, and then back at the thing, but it was gone. Vanished into the dark without a sound. "We're leaving," I said. We'd packed in silence. Neither of us spoke as we doused the fire and loaded the truck. By the time we reached the trailhead, the sun was climbing over the mountains. It felt like safety, but we were wrong. That thing, it followed us back. We didn't notice right away. Days went by. We returned to our routines. I went back to work. Liam went back to welding. It was almost like nothing had happened, until one night I came home and found Liam sitting on my porch, pale, sweating. "It's here," he said. "What?" "I saw it last night. In the backyard. It had your face." I laughed. I shouldn't have, but it was instinct. Nervous laughter, but he didn't smile. "I'm serious. It was just standing by the shed, not doing anything, just looking at me." That night I didn't sleep. Neither did he. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps on the gravel outside. I peeked through the blinds, and there it was. Not me, not Liam, but something wearing our faces, switching between them. It would walk behind the trees, and when it came back out, it had changed. 1 second it looked like me, down to the coat I wore that morning, and the next it had Liam's hunched stance and cigarette behind the ear. It didn't try to come closer. It didn't need to. It just watched, and that was somehow worse. We tried to ignore it, boarded the windows, stopped going outside after dark. We even contacted a tribal elder a few towns over. Didn't give him details, just said we might have seen something up Bitter Ridge. He didn't ask questions, just told us it saw you. That's enough. He gave us cedar ash and black salt, told us to circle the house with it, keep the windows covered, don't answer if it calls our names. That was the last part. Don't speak to it. Not even if it looks like someone you love. Because it would, and it did. A week later, Liam went missing. He said he was going for cigarettes. Never came back. I checked the security cam footage and froze. At 3:14 a.m., Liam walked out the front door. But another Liam was already standing at the edge of the woods. It raised its hand, Liam raised his, and they walked off together. I've been alone since the thing still comes. Some nights it stands in the backyard. Sometimes it scratches the windows. Sometimes I hear it whispering from under the porch, asking to be let in. Sometimes it cries, sounds like Liam. I haven't answered. I won't. But the truth, I'm not sure how much longer I can hold out, because last night it didn't take Liam's face. It wore my mother's, and she's been dead for 6 years. The first thing I noticed was the smell, metallic, sharp, like rusted iron left out in the rain. I'd only just stepped out of the truck. The cabin was maybe 20 yards ahead, nestled beneath a canopy of twisted oaks. A gift, apparently, from my uncle, an old hunting spot he hadn't used in years. "Use it for the weekend," he told me. "No one will bother you out there." That smell, though, it hit me as soon as the wind changed. Subtle at first, like an old coin held too long in your hand, then stronger, mixed with something else, wet soil, and something rotten underneath it. I figured it was just the forest floor, all that damp and decay. Still, Baxter, my golden retriever, wouldn't get out of the truck. Just sat there, ears low, tail tucked, staring out the windshield like we weren't supposed to be here. "Come on," I said, patting the door. "You love the woods." He didn't move. Eventually, I left him, told myself it was just nerves from the drive. I grabbed my pack, locked the truck, and walked toward the cabin. It looked how you'd expect, rough, weathered, and about 2 seconds from collapsing. A single lantern hung above the door, swaying faintly despite the still air. The porch creaked beneath my boots. Inside was dust, cobwebs, and silence. I lit the stove, lit the lantern, lit a cigarette, sat in the one chair that didn't look like it had fallen apart under me, and I waited for the peace I usually felt in the woods. But the smell didn't go away. It lingered in the walls, in the floorboards, beneath my fingernails, it seemed. And the silence in the trees, it was too quiet, no wind, no birds, just listening. I went outside again. Baxter was still in the truck. When I opened the door, he didn't leap out like usual. He didn't whine. He just stared into the tree line behind me. Not at me, behind me. Seriously, I turned. Nothing. Just trees, dense, still. So I walked to the edge of the clearing, squinting through the branches. And that's when I saw it, just a flash, a pale face in the trees, barely visible between the trunks, staring, then gone. I laughed it off. Nerves, I told myself. Exhaustion, that's all it was. Hell, I hadn't eaten since breakfast. Back in the cabin, I heated a can of chili and turned on the radio. Static. Then a country station out of Knoxville. The signal cut in and out, but it was enough to distract me while I ate. By nightfall, I was thinking about driving back. I hated how the place felt, like it was watching me. Not haunted, no. I don't believe in that. But haunted? Yeah. Something was wrong. I called for Baxter again. He finally jumped down and padded up the porch steps, but he wouldn't come inside. Just curled up in front of the door like a sentry. Around 11 p.m., I heard something behind the cabin. A crunch, dry leaves. Slow, purposeful. I killed the radio. Another step, closer. I grabbed my flashlight and the old rifle my uncle left behind. Swung the door open, nothing. The beam swept over the clearing, the grass, the trees, empty. But the smell was back, stronger now, like copper and meat. Baxter growled, his ears pinned, his hackles raised. I whispered his name. He didn't even blink. And then came the voice, from the trees. Not loud, not a shout, just a voice, soft and familiar. "Hey, buddy." It was my voice, exactly, down to the tired rasp, like someone had recorded me and played it back with all the life drained out. I froze. Baxter barked once, sharp and panicked, and bolted back into the truck. I didn't stop him. "Hey, buddy," it said again. Closer now, too close. I pointed the flashlight at the tree line. A figure stepped out from the dark. It was me, or something wearing me, same flannel shirt, same boots, same patchy beard, but the skin was wrong. The smile was stretched too wide, and the eyes empty. Not blind, just empty, like it had never needed eyes in the first place. I slammed the door and locked it, barricaded it with the table. It kept calling. Same voice, same tone, over and over. "Hey, buddy, come on out, it's safe." Then the scratching started, slow, deliberate, under the windows, on the back wall, on the roof, everywhere. The lantern flickered. The smell got worse. The air grew thick. I sat in the corner, rifle pointed at the door, listening. Eventually it stopped, or maybe I passed out. I don't remember. It was morning when I woke. Sunlight cut through the slats in the boards. Baxter was still in the truck, pacing inside, barking at the cabin like I was a threat now. When I opened the door, the smell hit me like a wall. Not copper, not meat, just rot. I stepped outside. Every inch of the cabin was marked, scratched with long gouges, like claws dragged through the wood. All the windows were smeared with something dark, like blood, but too thick, tar-like. And in the dirt, footprints, hundreds of them, all mine. Every one of them. I never found out what it was, never told anyone either. I boarded up the cabin, sold the truck, and haven't been back since. But every now and then I hear a knock on my apartment door. 3 quick taps. And sometimes, just sometimes, I hear my own voice on the other side. Hey, buddy. I hadn't seen another person in 4 days. That was the whole point. No emails, no traffic, no neighbors asking how I was holding up. Just me, the cabin, and the forest. I'd rented it off some backwater website, the kind with no reviews and outdated photos that looked scanned in from the 90s. But it was cheap, and it promised seclusion. A rustic stay deep in the Pennsylvania woods. And I needed seclusion. After what happened in Idaho last fall, I couldn't sleep right, couldn't think straight. People kept telling me, I'd imagined it, that my stress and isolation had gotten to me. I almost believed them. But that feeling never left, that watched feeling. Like the woods weren't just full, they were aware. The cabin here was nicer than expected. Small, but well kept. Generator powered. A fireplace. A stocked woodpile. Even a little radio. I set up on the first night, lit a fire, and sat on the front porch while the sun dipped behind the trees. The forest here was thicker than out west, denser. Shadows came earlier. I told myself I was safe. Day 1 passed quietly. I hiked the trails behind the cabin, filled the journal with scattered thoughts, drank bad coffee, and fell asleep to the sound of the wind rushing the leaves. Nothing unusual. Day 2, the wind changed, and so did the silence. You ever notice how forests breathe? There's a rhythm wind, insects, birds. Even the trees groan like lungs expanding. But on the second day, I realized the forest had gone still. No bird song, no rustle, just an oppressive hush. The kind that makes you feel like you're trespassing. That night I heard the knock. 3 slow taps on the back wall. I froze. You know that kind of quiet where your breath sounds loud? That's where I was. I turned off the radio, picked up the axe I'd been using for firewood, waited. Nothing. The next morning I walked around the cabin. No footprints, no claw marks, no broken branches. But the smell was off, faint, like wet fur and copper. Day 3 was worse. The woods never came back to life. That silence just deepened. Every now and then I'd hear something out there, twigs snapping in quick bursts, like someone trying not to be heard. But nothing ever showed itself. And that night, I heard my voice outside the cabin, calling from the woods, "Hey, it's just me. Open the door." I didn't move. It kept going, same exact tone, same inflections. Word for word, the voicemail I'd left my sister last week. "I'm okay. I just need time. I'll be back soon. Don't worry." A perfect mimic, played back in the wrong mouth. Then silence. I didn't sleep. I just sat in the corner with the axe across my knees, watching the door. Day 4. Today, the sky was wrong when I woke up. Not cloudy, gray. The kind of gray that soaks everything in dull light, flattens the world. I tried the radio. Static. The generator wouldn't kick on either. I was alone, truly. I packed my bag before noon. Decided to hike out early, get back to my car, forget this whole place ever existed. But when I reached the path, it was gone. Just gone. I walked for hours. No trail markers, no signs, just trees. All of them wrong. The same warped knot in the bark. The same low branch shaped like a crooked finger. Again and again. Like the forest was looping. When I finally made it back to the cabin, I didn't even feel surprised. It was waiting for me, and the front door was open. Not broken, not forced, just swinging slowly on its hinges. Inside it smelled like blood, but there wasn't any. Everything was in place, firewood, empty mug, notebook. The only thing that had changed was the mirror above the fireplace. It wasn't mine, it wasn't even a mirror. It looked like one from across the room, but when I got close, it didn't reflect me. It showed the forest, that same clearing out back, and standing in the center of it, me, but not me. He was taller, his limbs too long, his head tilted at an impossible angle, like it was hanging by a thread. And his face, no expression, just skin, smooth, like a mask before it's carved. Then he moved, and I moved with him. Every motion he made, I mirrored. Or he mirrored me. I couldn't tell. When I stepped back, he stepped forward. When I raised my hand, he did too. But then he kept going. I stopped moving. He didn't. He pressed his hand to the inside of the glass. I didn't. He smiled. I didn't. And his face, his skin, began to split. Right down the center, I ran out the front door. Into the trees. Didn't care about the trail. Didn't care about the truck. I just ran until the smell hit me again, wet fur and blood. And I stopped because the trees had gone still. And the voice returned from right behind me. "You can't leave this time." I'm in a ranger's station now. Found it by dumb luck. Empty, dusty, still running on backup power. I've locked every window, every door. There's a flare gun in the drawer and a half-used radio, crackling with static. And out there, just past the tree line, I see myself, still smiling, still watching. I don't know what it is, but I know what it wants. It didn't follow me. It found me again. I grew up around the timberlands near high water, Oregon dense pine forests, fog-thick valleys, old logging roads that went nowhere, and stories that traveled further than any map ever dared. When I moved back to take care of my dad's property after his stroke, I thought I was ready for the quiet again. I wasn't. Dad had always been a superstitious man. Chalk circles in the corners of rooms, salt lines across the thresholds, wind chimes made of bones, not animal, not human, just strange. He never explained them, and I never asked. I got the call that he'd been found wandering Route 7 in nothing but boots and a hospital gown. He kept muttering the same thing over and over. Don't follow the whistle. Don't you dare follow the damn whistle. We thought it was the stroke talking. Just scrambled nerves. But I'm not so sure anymore. The first few nights at the house were fine. Isolated, sure, but that was the draw. No cell service, no neighbors, just the hum of trees and the whisper of wind. But then I started hearing it, the whistle. It didn't come from the woods, not at first. It came from inside the house. I'd wake up at 3:13 a.m. on the dot every night to that same slow, descending whistle. The kind kids do when they're trying to annoy you. 4 notes, slow, playful, cruel. At first I thought it was the pipes, or a bird, but birds don't know how to mimic melody with perfect pitch, and pipes don't move. The first time I heard it under my bed, I thought I was dreaming. The second time I knew I wasn't. I started keeping a bat next to my bed. Then I upgraded to my dad's old .45. The whistle always came at the same time. 3:13 a.m., always 4 notes. Always close. Never outside. Not yet. One night, I decided to wait up. I sat on the couch with the pistol across my lap, coffee in one hand, flashlight in the other. The house creaked and moaned like any good haunted place should, but there was nothing out of the ordinary until 3:13 a.m. Then came the whistle, clear as a bell. This time it was in the attic. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just listened. The whistle came again, a little louder, a little closer. Then the trap door creaked open. I should have run. Any sane person would have, but I did what my dad told me never to do. I followed the whistle. The attic was pitch black, dusty, stinking of mildew and mothballs and something older. I raised the flashlight slowly. Saw nothing but boxes and beams and cobwebs. Then I heard it again, from behind me. 4 notes. I turned so fast I nearly dropped the flashlight, but there was nothing there. Just the open hatch behind me and the thin beam of moonlight from the hallway. I didn't sleep that night. I kept every light on, the pistol in my hand. The whistle never came again, at least not inside the house. It moved to the woods. There's a logging trail behind the house that hasn't been used in decades. It winds up toward Black Hollow Ridge, a place locals don't like to talk about. When I was a kid, we used to dare each other to walk there at night. Nobody ever made it past the deadfall. Nobody wanted to. That's where the whistle led me next. I was out feeding the generator around dusk when I heard it, clear as day, drifting through the trees. 4 notes, same melody, same timing. Roscoe, the dog I adopted from my dad's neighbor, bolted toward the trees before I could grab him. He didn't bark, didn't hesitate, just ran. I followed. Like a fool, I followed. The trail was different at night. The trees leaned closer. The shadows twisted, every sound felt aimed directly at me. Roscoe was ahead, but I could hear him, whimpering, then growling, then silence. I kept calling him, but the only thing that answered was the whistle. Louder now, closer, all around me. 4 notes. It sounded like it was circling. Then I saw him. At least I thought I did. Standing on the trail just ahead, Roscoe, tail still, ears alert, staring at me. But something was wrong. His mouth was hanging open, not panting, not growling, just open. And his eyes weren't right. Too wide, too still, reflecting light that didn't exist. I took a step forward, and that's when I heard it, behind me this time. Whimpering, the real Roscoe. I turned around, and there he was, muddy and shaking, ears pinned flat. I looked back toward the figure on the trail, and it was gone. Just gone, no sound, no movement. Just empty trail and the sound of my own breath catching in my throat. I picked up Roscoe and we ran. I didn't look back, not even once. The next day, I found footprints near the edge of the woods. They weren't mine. They weren't Roscoe's. They were barefoot, human, but long, too long, and there were only 3 toes. I called the sheriff. He gave me the usual. Could be a drifter, a prank, maybe teens messing around. But I could see it in his eyes. He'd heard it, too. He just wasn't ready to say it out loud. He left me with 2 words. Don't follow. I spent the next night with earplugs in, TV blasting, every light on. Still woke up at 3:13 a.m. Still heard the whistle. Roscoe stood at the door, growling low, tail between his legs. That was the last straw. I packed my bags that morning, called my brother, told him I was done, that the property wasn't worth keeping. He didn't argue. Said he'd heard the whistle, too. Said it had followed him into his dreams. I left that night. Didn't wait for morning. Didn't even say goodbye. Just like before, but this time it smiled. Epilogue, written in police report form. Recovered journal entry, found in cabin at Highwater Ridge. If you're reading this, don't follow the sound. Don't follow the whistle. No matter what it looks like, no matter what name it says, it's not your friend. It's not your dog. It's not your family. Once you look it in the eyes, it never stops.